everyone and welcome to Literary Spaces. Today we'll be discussing the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Here is everything we will cover. First, I'll provide some background information to introduce you to the poem. Then we will explore the poem itself. It is a pretty short poem, so we'll break down each and every line in simple and short words to help you understand. Next, we'll take a look at the structure and the literary devices used in the poem. After that, we'll go over the key analysis points of this poem that will help you write answers in your exams and assignments. Next, we'll discuss how Ozymandias reflects ideals of romantic literature, because we are discussing this as part of your course Romantic Literature for Semester 3 English at University of Delhi. But obviously, this video will be helpful for anybody who wants to know about this poem. Finally, I'll go over some important questions that you can expect in exams or assignments. These are a mix of previous year questions at University of Delhi, along with some questions I believe are crucial. If you want to skip to any particular section, you can find the timestamps in the description. And with that, let's get started. So first, let's take a look at our poet, Percy Bysshe Shelley. Percy Bysshe Shelley was an English romantic poet. He was known for his radical and non-conformist ideas. He liked to challenge the society through his works. He would explore themes like political and social justice, nature, human spirit, and even atheism. He wrote the poem Ozymandias as part of a poetry contest with a friend, and then it was published later. Now let's talk about the title Ozymandias. Ozymandias is actually a title used for Ramesses II. Ramesses II was an Egyptian pharaoh, an Egyptian ruler. He was known for his building projects, military conquest, and for being very grand and proud. Now that you know the background, let's take a look at the poem itself. I met a traveler from an antique land who said. Now you will notice that almost all of the poem is in quotation marks. That is because the speaker is telling us a story he heard from a traveler who has come from a very distant old land. The traveler said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert." So the traveler describes seeing two large legs of a statue in the middle of the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies. Near the legs, there is the broken upper body of that statue, lying half sunk in the sand, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command. Now the traveler is describing the expression on the face of the statue. It has a frown, a wrinkled lip, and a sneer of cold command. This reveals that this person must have been very proud and arrogant. Tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. This suggests that the sculptor understood the emotions and the character of the person and managed to capture them on the statue. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. Now this line is a bit tricky and it has been interpreted in various ways. One way to understand it is that the sculptor, by capturing this proud and cruel expression so perfectly on the statue, is almost mocking the person's arrogance. At the same time, the person, Ozymandias, is so vain and arrogant that he doesn't even understand that he is being mocked, and he feels proud for his statue. And on the pedestal, these words appear. "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." This is the sentence inscribed on the pedestal of the statue. Ozymandias is commanding everyone who look at the statue to look around and look upon all his great works and feel jealous and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. This is the irony in the poem. The sentence in the pedestal tells us to look at all of Ozymandias' achievement, but the surrounding is nothing but desert. There is just this broken statue and never-ending desert. All his buildings, all his achievements are nothing but sand now. Now let's discuss the poem's structure. This is a sonnet. If you'd remember reading the poems in your first semester, you would know that sonnet is a 14-line poem divided into octet and sestet. The first 8 lines, the octet, creates a situation, and then the last 6 lines, the sestet, comments on that situation. In the poem Ozymandias, the first 8 lines describes the statue, and then the last 6 lines comments on the irony of the situation. Now let's take a look at the literary devices. There are three major literary devices that should be important to us. First is metaphor. The statue stands as the metaphor of human beings' obsession with power and legacy, whereas the sand stands as the power of nature and time. Next we have imagery. Shelley has used imagery to let the readers visualize the statue of Ozymandias lying broken in the middle of the desert. Lastly, we have irony. The expression on the face of the statue mocks Ozymandias' cruel, cold command. The king is also brazenly boasting about his accomplishment in the inscription, but next to it there is nothing but sand. All of his accomplishments are gone. Let's take a look at some different analysis points of this poem. This should help you write any answer or assignment. First, there is the transience of power. Power is temporary. Shelley is criticizing human beings' obsession with power and legacy. All power is temporary. No matter how many achievements you have, how much power you have, it will all go away with time. No amount of power can withstand the merciless and unceasing passage of time. Even the greatest of rulers and empires fall with time. Next, we have the very interesting narrative structure that Shelley uses. The poem is in quotation marks. The story of Ozymandias is told to us through a traveler who comes from a very distant land where he encountered the broken statue of Ozymandias. This narrative structure adds another layer of distance to the poem. It is as if Shelley is reminding us that human achievements, no matter how monumental, will eventually be reduced to mere stories told by others. Next, there is the power of art. Shelley is talking about the temporariness of every human achievement, but at the same time it is celebrating the immortality of art. Everything will go away with time, but art will remain the same and it will be celebrated. In the poem, all of the achievements of Ozymandias have been reduced to sand, but the statue made by the sculptor remains. In this way, Shelley suggests that power and glory is fleeting, but art has the enduring power to preserve our memories and emotions. Now let's talk about Romanticism in this poem. Shelley was a romantic poet. If you want to know what Romanticism is and what are the features of romantic literature, you can check out our video. But in short, Romanticism was a movement in Europe that started toward the end of 18th century that put more emphasis on the emotions and feelings of individuals. Let's see what romantic features we can find in this poem. First and the most major one is obviously the theme of nature versus human. Romantics were deeply respectful of nature and criticized humans' attempts to dominate it through science and technology. Through this poem, she tells us how weak human beings are in front of the natural world. Nature has the power to reclaim everything humanity has built. All of Ozymandias' achievements had turned to sand. Second, we have the theme of impermanence. Romantics often stressed upon the fact that everything is temporary, and they would talk about the idea of inevitability of decay. Nothing is permanent and everything has to turn into soil at the end. And that is exactly what we see in the poem. Third is the critique of power. Romantics were very critical of authority. The poem Ozymandias also acts as a warning against the arrogance of rulers who think they can defy the natural order. Fourth, we have the concept of immortality of art. Romantics put heavy emphasis on the celebration of art and how it transcends time. And those were all of the key analysis points about this poem that you should keep in your mind. Now we will take a look at some important questions for exams and assignments. I've taken some of this question from previous year question paper of Delhi University and some are my own suggestion. First, we have a RTC question, a reference to text question. If you are an English major student, you will know that these type of questions will always come in a poetry paper and they get a little difficult. So the line is, nothing beside remains, round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sand stretch far away. In this type of questions, the first paragraph should always mention where these lines are from. Mention the poem and the poet's name. Give a brief intro to the poem, a little summary, and then write about where these lines are situated in the poem. Write about the inscription and how nothing is left around the statue. discuss the irony of these lines about how Shelley is mocking Ozymandias, discuss the theme of humans' obsession with power and legacy, and about the result of excessive pride and arrogance. The next question is, some critics argue that Ozymandias presents a pessimistic view of human endeavors, while others see it as a celebration of art's enduring power. Which interpretation do you find more convincing and why? So the question states that Ozymandias presents a pessimistic view of human endeavors, which is true. In the poem, Shelley talks about how every human achievement is not permanent and it has to turn into sand one day. But at the same time, it also talks about the celebration of art and its immortality. So you will have to decide which one you find more convincing and then write about it. Our third question is, write a brief essay on the political message of Ozymandias. Through this poem, Shelley is obviously criticizing leaders who are too proud and arrogant, who misuse their powers to oppress their people, and Ozymandias symbolizes this authoritarian ruler. He is a tyrant. Shelley is criticizing this arrogance, and he also talks about the inevitable decline of every ruler. No matter how much they try to control the nature, their power is never permanent. Even the greatest empires will eventually fall. You will also have to talk about the inscription and the irony of the surrounding for this question. Our last question is, discuss how Ozymandias reflects romantic ideals. We have discussed this point in detail in the Romanticism section. You have to write about how Shelley incorporates romantic ideals like nature versus human, impermanence and inevitability of decay, critique of power, and immortality of art. And that was all. I think I have covered almost every important aspect of this poem. Don't forget to revise the analysis point, because as long as you have the themes memorized, I think you will be able to tackle any question. If you have any queries, let me know in the comments. I'll make sure to answer them. Stay tuned with the playlist in the description for more lectures in this series, and thanks for watching.